Of course we need to tackle inflation. And in fact, the Bank of England forecast suggests it will fall next year. And of course, we've got an independent monetary policy run by the Bank of England, and it's primarily their role to target and reduce inflation. I think that's very important. But on the subject of food bills, what we need to make sure is that people are keeping more of their own money. And what has happened is that the tax has been raised on families through national insurance, so they're having to pay more money to the Treasury. I do think it is morally wrong at this moment when families are struggling to pay for their food that we have put up taxes on ordinary people when we said we wouldn't in our manifesto and when we didn't need to do
Rishi
so.
Sunak, is that morally wrong?
This inflation is a global problem. It's incredibly important we continue to face down Vladimir Putin to end this appalling war, which is causing some of this food price inflation.
On that. Is it morally wrong?
I think what's morally wrong is asking our children and grandchildren to pick up the tab for the bills that we're not prepared to meet. And if we're now going to have this conversation, that would be great, because I think we all knew that we did a lot to support the country through COVID, and I don't think anyone thought that there wouldn't be a bill to pay for that. So the question is, who's going to pay that bill? And we had a question right at the beginning about corporation tax. And I think it's entirely reasonable to ask the largest companies in this country, just the top 10% of companies, to pay a bit more because they received a lot of help during the pandemic. And as we think about, well, how do we fix this problem? How do we fund the things, the public services that we rely on? Is it reasonable to ask the biggest companies in the country to pay a bit more tax? They still will pay a very generous rate of tax compared to most other countries, so it's very competitive and fair. But I think it's reasonable to ask them to contribute to helping us fix the problem.
Liz
wants to cut the taxes for big business.
Well,
I don't think that's fair.
With regard
to, if I could just finish this question about what's morally right and wrong, right? It's important what we leave our kids and our grandkids, and I think it is important to think about that inheritance. Yeah. And I don't want to pass them a bill that we couldn't be bothered to pick up ourselves.
And you've made that point in previous debates, and we've talked about inflation at some length. Liz Truss, your policies, economists will rise, inflation will rise under your plans. How much will people's mortgages go up? Can you level with them?
Can I just make the point about corporation tax? I am not talking about cutting corporation tax. I'm talking about not raising corporation tax. Under Rishi's plan, we will end up raising corporation tax to the same level it is in France, more than 10 percentage points higher than it is in Ireland. And companies have a choice about whether they invest in the UK or whether they invest elsewhere. Rishi's policies are making us less competitive.